Most people today know that race science was wrong, but what many people don't realize is how self-serving it was for the anthropologists of the day and how riddled with contradictions it really was, even as it shaped elite institutions. In the 1800s, elite scholars across the United States and Europe tried to scientifically prove that some races were naturally superior to others. One of the most influential figures was Samuel Morton, who collected hundreds of human skulls and measured them obsessively. He believed skull size meant bigger brains, and bigger brains determined intelligence. He legitimized the racial hierarchy we are all familiar with today. This became known as craniometry. His theories on skull size became one of the foundations of American race science. When the evidence didn't match his theories, he made excuses. If skulls didn't fit his hierarchy, he ignored them or changed their labels. So conveniently, his rankings placed Europeans at the top, but not just any Europeans. He found not all Europeans were created equal. He elevated the groups that mirrored the American and British elites. He also determined that German brains were bigger than French brains. The French anthropologists who had agreed with him before didn't agree that the French were not as smart as Germans, so they concluded that although correlation between skull size and intelligence did exist with other groups, it wasn't always so. In 1843, Josiah Knott published The Mulatto Hybrid and warned of supposed disastrous consequences if black people and white people married. He promoted the claim that biracial people would be infertile hybrids, despite obvious real-world evidence contradicting that. But accuracy wasn't the point. These theories helped build his reputation as a racial scholar in the American South, and he himself was pro-slavery. French race scientist Arthur de Gobineau believed history was driven by race mixing and argued that a so-called Aryan race was responsible for civilization, while other groups were destined to decline. Gobineau believed that Celts, Slavs, and other non-Aryan Europeans were inferior, and his ideas traveled widely among European elites. He also believed that the African race had many positive qualities, and that although Aryans were superior, they still had inefficiencies, so mixing would help resolve those inefficiencies. Of course, this went completely against what Knott was publishing and preaching. In 1855, Knott had the work of Gobineau translated for American audiences. He kept Gobineau's name, but rewrote it to support Southern slavery using Morton's cranial classifications as evidence. Gobineau rejected these distortions. Then there was Louis Agassiz. Agassiz rejected Darwin's evolutionary theory and instead supported the idea that the races were created separately from the very beginning. As founder of Harvard's Museum of Comparative Zoology, he helped turn these ideas into institutional knowledge. His student and protege, Nathaniel Shaler, an Anglo-Saxonist chauvinist, took this thinking even further. Shaler not only promoted ideas of racial inferiority of non-Anglos, but warned that Southern and Eastern European immigrants threatened America's racial integrity. So this is what that history reveals. Race science was not one fixed ideology. These ideas aren't gone. Today, they show up anytime someone tries to present inequality as culture. They show up in hiring decisions, housing policy, schools, medicine, policing, immigration debates, and they show up online all the time. So it's fair to say that the past is more relevant than some give it credit for.